Hey everybody, this is Ryan Nash with a Fistful of Cards, and this is the first installment in our new video series, the Beginner Buyer's Guide to Doomtown. In this series, we're going to look at every Doomtown product and talk about whether it is a good fit for a new player looking to expand their collection, whether it's something that you should get immediately, something that is only good for certain factions or deck archetypes, or if it's something you can hold off on until you're ready to complete your collection and just pick up those last couple stragglers. For this video series, I'm going to be assuming that you are a Doomtown player, someone who has at least the base set, has played the game, understands kind of the core concepts, and is just looking to expand your collection and get deeper into the game. This first installment is going to be looking at the base set, Doomtown Reloaded. But I just said you already have a base set. Well, you might have noticed that in the base set, it only comes with 2 copies of each card. By the rules of Doomtown, you can build a deck with up to 4 copies of any card. So if you want a full set of everything in Doomtown Reloaded, you need 2 copies of the base set. Let's talk about whether or not that's worth doing. So you can see here I have the Doomtown database pulled up, dtdb.co, and I have the base set Doomtown Reloaded pulled up, sorted by type, and viewed as a simple list, just to kind of get an overview of what is in it as a refresher. Base set has 146 cards in it. That is a lot of cardboard. The first thing we have listed here is the outfits. Having a second base set is going to give you a second copy of all the outfit cards. This will give you an additional 4 matchups as you'll be able to play each faction against itself. This is really important for a single collection playgroup. If you are the only person with cards in your playgroup, you have other people you're playing with, but maybe more than one person wants to play the same faction in any given game, you now have that option. And that is just going to greatly expand your experience of the game. Moving on to the deeds. Deeds in general, it is better to have more and to have more options. For the base set, all of these deeds are serviceable, they're all playable. None of them have really dramatic downsides, and some of them are just the best deeds in the game. They are, to this day, some of the best options. You know, if you just have a couple slots open in any given deck, it is usually correct to add in like a General Store or a Carter's Bounties or a Circle M Ranch, something along those lines. There's a lot of really good options here in the base set for any deck to partake in. Lots of good stuff here in the deeds. In general, having more copies of those is just going to give you more options. Dudes, similarly, we have a lot of really solid dudes here. Specifically, the neutral dudes over here are going to open up a lot of options for a lot of decks. You already have a couple of copies, but if you like having multiple decks built, maybe one for each faction, or you like having a couple of different sub-themes built, having more copies of all these dudes is going to make that a lot easier. Specifically, Clementine Lep and Travis Moon are some of the best starting dudes in the base set, and they are neutral, so they can go in every deck. If you have more copies of them, that's more decks you can have built. As far as factions go, Fearmongers, or Fourth Ring, as they were known, doesn't have a whole lot going on here that you need a bunch of copies of. Law Dogs, however, you want a ton of Philip Swinfords. If you're going to play a lot of Law Dogs, have a lot of Law Dogs decks built, you will want Philip. He is just the most startable, easiest, most basic Law Dogs dude, and he just slots right into pretty much every starting posse for that faction. Similarly, in Entrepreneurs, or Morgan, we have Irving Patterson. He is going to fill a very similar role, where he just kind of goes right in to a lot of starting posses. And then over here in Outlaws, we have, you guessed it, a 3-cost 1 influence dude who just goes right into a bunch of starting posses. You also have, of note in Outlaws, Ali Hensman, who is, I would say, the single most impactful, easily splashable into other factions dude in the game. Allie is incredibly powerful in her home faction of Outlaws, but is also very splashable in any deck that doesn't have some kind of restriction preventing them from playing her. She's not super strong in any deck that requires skills or pulls due to her ace value, but pretty much anything else can slot her in as a win condition because she can generate control points every turn. Very strong card, Allie Hensman, and you will see a lot of her the more Doomtown you play. As far as the other dudes go, you have a lot of role fillers here, a lot of just kind of solid guys on different values that are important for the game. Again, having more copies of these dudes will let you have more decks built at the same time. Moving on to goods, spells, and actions, this is where things really get interesting and the main reason why I recommend buying a second core set. So let's talk about these card types. First off, having more of them is always good because these, unlike dudes and deeds, are going to be non-unique. You can have any number of a given goods or spell in play as long as it is not unique. The only unique good in the core set is going to be Legendary Holster, and it is still very powerful even on its own. A lot of these goods are just incredibly powerful due to their straightforward, easy to use effects. You have some of the best weapons in the game, the aforementioned Legendary Holster, Shotgun, Pearl-Handled Revolver, all very strong. A couple of role fillers here on different values. You've got just all kinds of different options for different values, and having the ability to go up to 4 copies of these very strong cards is going to really change the kinds of decks you can make and make them a lot more effective. As far as gadgets go, you do have some of the best gadgets in the game here. You've got Force Field and Mechanical Horse, which are just very strong, very efficient for their costs, and have low difficulties compared to their values. So that is a very strong case for gadgets here. Moving on to spells, 3 of these spells are still among the best in the game. Blood Curse, Shadow Walk, and Soul Blast find a home in almost every hex deck. They are incredibly powerful tools, and no hex deck should give them up if you can at all afford to play them. Ace in the Hole and Raising Hell are kind of awkward, but still decent cards. Definitely more of a build-around thing going on there. And then moving on to actions, the actions, similar to the goods and spells, have a couple of duds. Some cards that are maybe more thematic than mechanically impactful, or are just maybe not as strong or as straightforward as some of the other options here. I do want to mention that some of the cards in the core set have had errata. For the most part, this has just been templating, clearing up wording, making things more straightforward. Specifically, Coach Whip, Concealed Weapons, and Unprepared have all had reprints with better wording on them. Hot Lead Flying has had a functional errata. This card is actually mechanically different. So if you go to an organized play event, make sure that you look up the errata for all of these cards. As you complete your collection, later printings of different sets will have basically promos in them that are reprints of these cards with the correct wording. You'll know that they are the correct one because they'll have a little like asterisk next to the set number. So back to these actions, there are a number of these that are deck defining, and then a lot of them are just very strong actions that do something that is mechanically good. So we have some of the best shootout actions in the game: Pistol Whip, Unprepared, Sun in Your Eyes, Pin Down. It's really just hard to compare with these. Similarly, on Cheat and Resolutions, you have Bottom Dealing and Coach Whip, which are very strong and on good values, especially if you're only playing the core set. These are cards that will see a lot of play. There's some other things. Bounty Hunter, if you can play 4 of them, gets significantly better. The more Bounty Hunters you can throw out, the better that card gets. And Point Blank, similarly, is very strong. As you've seen in Patrick's deck building series, if you've watched that, any deck with the sufficient density of studs to play point blank and actually make it fire should do so. And having more copies of that will just let you put it in more decks or have readier access to it in the decks you do play it in. And then moving on down here to the bottom, we have the Jokers. The base set only comes with one copy of each Joker, the one black and one red. If you have two base sets, then you'll have two sets of Jokers. And this will let you have two decks that you can play at the same time that will both have Jokers in them. And this is really important to get the full Doomtown experience. You know, if you're playing a couple of decks that are both shootout oriented and want to have two Jokers, it just isn't the same as having one Joker in each. And it would be really one-sided and kind of unfair if you had one deck with two Jokers and the other deck got none, but it wanted some. So having those extra Jokers is very good for the balance of your playgroup, and just for kind of playing the game in general. Having more Jokers is always good, and the base set Joker is still the best Joker, if only because it doesn't have any downsides. So in general, I would say the base set Doomtown Reloaded is a must-buy. It is an immediate purchase. If you got one core set, you played the game, you liked it, you want to get deeper in, get that second core, and that is not only going to give you a very stylish and useful storage box. The base set box is fantastic. I cannot say enough about it. But it will also give you a full playset of all of these amazing cards. A lot of the cards in the base set have yet to be matched and are just incredibly good. So you'll get a lot of mileage out of a second base set. The only time I would say that the second base set shouldn't be your immediate snap pick first purchase for an expanding player would be if you really, really, really want to play a secondary theme, something that isn't supported by the base set. What do I mean by that? There are a lot of things that come up later in the game's life if you haven't seen them as a new player, if you've only played with the base set and haven't seen any of the other cards. There are some other things that pop up later that are not supported in the base set. They just don't exist yet. And so if you want to get into those, you will need the boxes that support those, but we'll get to that. So in short, my rating for the base set would be immediate purchase. If you are an expanding player, you're looking to get deeper into your collection, second base set is where you should start. Thanks so much for watching. If you liked the video, give us a thumbs up. If you hated it, give us a thumbs down. Either way, sound off in the comments and let us know what you thought, and we'll see you next time. Bye!